The alarm bells rang through the great hall of the Galactic Trade Council. Red lights flashed on every wall. Ambassador Zethkar rushed into the emergency meeting room, his 6 arms carrying data tablets and report files. His blue skin was darker than usual, which meant he was very worried. "We have a serious problem," Zethkar announced to the gathered aliens. "The humans are being polite." The room fell silent. Every species in the galaxy knew that polite humans were dangerous humans. For 200 years, the Council had watched humanity spread across the stars. They had learned to read the warning signs. Angry humans were predictable. Quiet humans were planning something. But polite humans? That meant trouble was coming. Council leader Morthen looked up from his crystal display. His tall, thin body swayed slightly as he processed the information. "How polite are we talking about?" he asked in his musical voice. Zethkar activated the main screen. Video footage began to play. It showed a human sitting at a negotiation table. The human was young, maybe 30 years old, with short brown hair and a friendly smile. He wore a simple blue uniform with the words Earth Diplomatic Corps on the chest. "This is Captain Jake Morrison," Zethkar explained. "He represents the human colony on Kepler Prime. Last week he came to discuss mining rights in the Vega system." The council members watched the video. Captain Morrison was talking to a group of Vrillian traders. The Vrillians were large, gray-skinned beings with 4 eyes and sharp teeth. They were known for their aggressive business practices. "Please understand," Captain Morrison was saying in the video, "we would be so grateful if you could consider our humble request. We know you are very busy, and we truly appreciate you taking the time to meet with us." The Vrillian leader leaned back in his chair. His 4 eyes blinked in confusion. "You want to mine the asteroid belt in Sector 7? "Only if it would not be too much trouble," Morrison replied with a warm smile. "We understand completely if you prefer to keep that area for yourselves. We have many other options, and we would not want to impose on your generous nature." One of the Vrillians whispered something to his companion. They looked nervous. Morrison continued talking. "We are so thankful for your time today. Really, we cannot express how much we appreciate your consideration of our small request. If there is anything we can do to show our gratitude, please let us know." The video ended. The council chamber was quiet for a long moment. "How many times did he say, 'Please?'" asked Councillor Cathani, a crystalline being whose body glowed soft purple when she was stressed. 17 times, Zethkar answered. "And he said thank you 23 times, in a 30-minute meeting." Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The Kelthani representative, a furry creature with large ears, raised one paw. "We have similar reports from our sector. A human captain named Lisa Harper requested permission to establish a mining colony on asteroid KL447. She apologized 12 times for the inconvenience of making the request. But KL447 is in unclaimed space," Morthen pointed out. "Exactly," the Kelthani replied. "She was apologizing for asking permission to use something that belonged to no one." More reports came in. The Andromedan delegate stood on his tentacles and spoke in his bubbling voice. "Human Ambassador Peter Collins attended our Senate dinner last month. He sent handwritten thank you notes to every member of our government. 347 notes, each one was different." The chamber erupted in worried chatter. Handwritten notes from humans were a very bad sign. It meant they were putting extra effort into being nice. Dr. Morthen, the Council's chief expert on human behavior, stepped forward. His species had been studying humans longer than anyone else. They had thick skin that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, his skin was a deep orange, which meant extreme concern. "Council members," Dr. Morthen began, "we need to understand what this means. For 2 centuries, we have observed human behavior patterns. We have learned their ways. When humans are angry, they shout and make demands. When they are planning something, they become quiet and secretive. But when they become very polite, it means they have reached the end of their patience." He activated another display. Charts and graphs appeared showing human politeness levels over time. The lines went up and down like mountain peaks. But recently they had all started climbing higher. Look at these patterns, Dr. Morthen continued. Every time humans have become extremely polite in the past, it has been followed by what they call decisive action. The Terra Proxima incident in 2387 started with humans politely suggesting improvements to the local government. Within 6 months, they had completely reorganized the entire system. The council members looked at each other with growing alarm. The Terra Proxima incident was still studied in military academies across the galaxy. No one was quite sure how the humans had done it, but they had managed to convince an entire planet to change its government just by being extremely helpful and courteous. What about the Rigel colony situation? Asked Counselor Vextar, a reptilian, being with scales that clicked when he was nervous. His scales were clicking now. Same pattern, Dr. Morthen replied. Humans arrived with flowers and apologies. They thanked the local officials for their warm welcome. Within a year, they had been elected to run the entire colony. The evidence was clear. Polite humans were the most dangerous kind of humans. When they started saying please and thank you too often, it meant they were about to change everything. Zethkar pulled up more recent reports. The situation is getting worse. We have confirmation from 7 different sectors. Human politeness levels have increased by 40% in the last month alone. Council Leader Morthen made his decision. Activate Alert Level Yellow. Send warnings to all member species. They need to watch for signs of excessive human courtesy. Anyone who receives more than 5 thank yous from a human in a single conversation should report it immediately. The emergency alert went out across the galaxy. For the first time in Council history, an entire species was being monitored for being too nice. As the Council members filed out of the chamber, Dr. Morthen remained behind, staring at the data. His skin had turned a deep purple, the color his species showed when they were truly afraid. Somewhere out there, humans were being polite, and that meant the galaxy was about to change in ways no one could predict. 3 weeks passed since the Council issued Alert Level Yellow. The warnings had gone out to every corner of the galaxy. All species were told to watch for unusual human politeness. What came back was worse than anyone expected. The first report came from Zephyrian Trade Station, one of the busiest commercial hubs in the Outer Rim. Station Commander Yelthok was a veteran of 30 years in space commerce. He had dealt with every kind of trader imaginable. Pirates, smugglers, and con artists were all part of his daily routine. But nothing had prepared him for Commander Ryan Foster and his human crew. Foster arrived at the station aboard a ship called the Peaceful Journey. The name alone should have been a warning sign. Humans rarely named their ships anything peaceful unless they were planning trouble. Commander Foster and his crew have been here for 5 days, Yelthok reported to the Council via emergency transmission. His tentacles were wrapped tightly around his communication device, a sure sign of stress in his species. They hold every door open for every alien they encounter. Every single door. My staff is afraid to walk anywhere because humans keep jumping up to help them. The situation got worse. Foster's crew had started complimenting everything they saw. They praised the station's architecture, the quality of the air recycling system, and even the color scheme of the walls. One human crew member named Katie Wells had spent 20 minutes telling a Zephyrian maintenance worker how beautifully he cleaned the floors. They clean up after themselves, Yelthok continued, his voice shaking. They wipe down tables they never used. They organize waiting areas that were already organized. Yesterday I found one of them apologizing to a waste disposal unit for throwing away garbage. But the most disturbing report involved human trader Katie Wells. She had approached several Zephyrian merchants about purchasing rare crystals. The negotiations should have taken an hour. Instead, Katie spent 45 minutes apologizing for the inconvenience of conducting legal business. I am so sorry to bother you with this request, Katie had said to Merchant Zulkar. I know how valuable your time is, and I truly hate to impose on your generous nature. Please forgive me for taking up space in your beautiful shop. Zulkar had tried to tell her the business was welcome, but Katie kept apologizing. She thanked him for his patience 17 times before even mentioning what she wanted to buy. When she finally made her offer, she apologized for the presumption of suggesting a price. The price was fair, Yelthok reported. Better than fair. She offered 20% above market value and then apologized for the low offer. 3 of my merchants fled the negotiations. They were too scared to continue. The reports kept coming in. From the mining colonies in the Centauri system, officials reported that human workers had started bringing gifts to their alien supervisors. Not valuable gifts, but small tokens of appreciation. Flowers picked from the colony gardens. Hand-carved trinkets made during break time. Thank you cards written in careful handwriting. On the frontier world of Kepler 442b, the situation reached new levels of concern. Human colonist Ben Murphy had submitted a formal request to the local crystalline authority. The crystallines were beings made of living rock who barely acknowledged other species existed. They were proud, ancient, and considered themselves superior to all organic life. Ben's request was simple. He wanted permission for humans to continue breathing the planet's atmosphere, the planet that humans had legally purchased 3 years earlier, the planet where they had been living and working without any problems. The request came with a fruit basket. The fruit was grown in the human colony's own gardens. Ben had also included a 50-page essay titled, "Why Humans Are Deeply Grateful for Crystalline Tolerance." The essay praised the wisdom of the crystallines and thanked them for their generous patience with inferior organic beings. "This is not normal human behavior," reported crystalline leader Quartzthan in his grinding stone voice. "Humans do not usually ask permission to breathe. They certainly do not write essays about their gratitude for existing." The crystallines were confused and worried. In their long history, they had never encountered organisms that thanked them for allowing basic life functions. It made them suspicious that humans were planning something terrible. But the most alarming report came from the edge of known space. The Hegemon Empire controlled the outer territories with an iron fist. They were warriors who respected only strength and directness. They had no patience for weakness or excessive courtesy. Human Captain Amy Rodriguez commanded a deep space exploration vessel called the Harmony. She had sent a formal message to the Hegemon High Command. The message was delivered on expensive paper with gold lettering. It was written in perfect Hegemon script, which meant someone had spent considerable time learning their language. The message was an apology. Captain Rodriguez was sorry for humanity's presumptuous existence in the same galaxy as the mighty Hegemon Empire. She acknowledged that humans were taking up valuable space that could be better used by superior beings. She humbly requested forgiveness for this oversight. The message included detailed plans for human relocation to another galaxy. The plans were thorough and well-researched. They showed evacuation routes, timeline estimates, and resource calculations. Captain Rodriguez had even included a sincere request for the Hegemons not to trouble themselves with providing transportation. Humans would handle their own exile. At their earliest convenience, the message concluded, humanity will remove itself from Hegemon space and seek a more appropriate location for their inferior species. The Hegemon War Council had never received such a message. They were trained to deal with threats, challenges, and demands for tribute. They had no idea how to respond to elaborate apologies and offers of voluntary exile. News of these incidents reached the council within hours. Dr. Morthan called an emergency session. His skin had turned completely black, the color his species showed only in times of extreme crisis. "The politeness levels have exceeded all our projections," he announced to the assembled council. "We are now dealing with humans who are apologizing for existing and thanking aliens for breathing the same air." The data was overwhelming. Human politeness had increased by 300% in just 3 weeks. They were saying please and thank you so often that some aliens were having stress-related health problems. Council leader Morthan made the decision everyone had been dreading. Upgrade to Alert Level Orange. Begin evacuation procedures for all non-essential personnel from human-adjacent sectors. If this escalation continues, we may be looking at a galaxy-wide politeness crisis. The orange alert went out immediately. For the second time in 3 weeks, the entire galaxy was warned about human behavior. But this time, the warning was more serious. Aliens were advised to avoid human contact unless absolutely necessary. Those who had to interact with humans were told to bring stress medication and emotional support staff. As reports continued to flood in, one thing became clear. Humanity had moved beyond normal politeness into something that threatened the stability of interstellar relations. No one knew what would happen next, but everyone agreed it would not be good. The galaxy held its breath and waited for the humans to make their next move. The Council's worst fears came true on a Tuesday morning. The emergency alarms had barely stopped ringing from the orange alert when new reports arrived. These were not like the previous incidents. These reports made seasoned diplomats question reality itself. The first message came from Nexus Prime, the most important diplomatic station in the galaxy. Every major species had an embassy there. Treaties were signed there. Wars were ended there. It was the center of galactic civilization. Station. Director Velmora was a calm, professional being. In her 40 years of diplomatic service, she had seen everything from trade wars to actual wars. Her species, the Kelthani, were known for their steady nerves and logical thinking. But when she sent her emergency transmission to the Council, her voice was shaking. "We have received a document from Human Ambassador Carl Watson," she reported. "The document is 300 pages long. It is a formal request to the Dominion of Shells asking for permission to exist in the current timeline." The Council chamber fell silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause in confusion. Permission to exist in the current timeline was not something anyone had ever requested before. It was not something that could be granted or denied. It was simply impossible. Dr. Morthen's skin turned white with shock. "What exactly does the document say?" Velmora's voice cracked as she read from the report. "Ambassador Watson apologizes for humanity's presumptuous use of oxygen. He expresses deep regret for humanity's inconsiderate occupation of space-time. He requests formal guidance on whether humans should continue to exist or if they should politely remove themselves from reality." The document included detailed calculations. Watson had somehow determined exactly how much oxygen humanity had consumed in the past century. He provided numbers for how much space human bodies occupied. He even calculated the gravitational impact of human existence on nearby star systems. "He offers to pay rent," Velmora continued, her voice barely a whisper. "Rent for existing, to the universe itself." The Council members looked at each other in growing panic. This was beyond excessive politeness. This was humans apologizing to the fundamental forces of nature. But the reports got worse. From the Outer Rim territories came news that made everyone question human sanity. The human colony ship New Horizon, under Captain Nancy Griffin, had sent a message to the Void Hunters. The Void Hunters were the most feared species in known space. They were creatures of living darkness who consumed entire star systems. They had destroyed civilizations that had lasted for millions of years. Every species in the galaxy feared them. Most species pretended they did not exist and hoped the Void Hunters would ignore them in return. Captain Griffin had thanked them. The message was sent directly to the Void Hunter fleet in the Magellanic Cloud, reported Scout Commander Trixel, whose species lived closest to Void Hunter territory. Captain Griffin thanked them for their constructive criticism regarding humanity's expansion into the Outer Rim. The Council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Several members fainted. One delegate started making religious prayers to ancient gods. Trixel continued reading the report, his multiple eyes blinking rapidly. She called their planet-destroying activities helpful feedback. She said humans appreciated their input on proper galactic citizenship. She offered to relocate immediately if their presence caused any inconvenience whatsoever. The message had been received by the Void Hunters. Their response was a single word, transmitted across space in letters made of pure darkness. Confused. Even the Void Hunters, beings who existed to destroy everything, did not know how to respond to humans thanking them for criticism. Dr. Morthen stood up slowly. His skin was now cycling through colors so quickly it was making other council members dizzy. "We need to understand something," he said in a voice that carried across the chamber. "Humans have just thanked the Void Hunters for destroying things. This is beyond any behavioral pattern we have ever recorded. The emergency session continued for hours. More reports arrived with each passing minute. Human colonies across the galaxy were submitting formal apologies for things that made no sense. They apologized for taking up space in empty areas of the galaxy. They thanked alien species for allowing gravity to work on human bodies. They expressed gratitude to stars for providing light and heat. On the agricultural world of New Eden, human farmers had written thank you notes to the soil, individual notes to dirt, expressing appreciation for growing food. The local plant-based aliens were so confused they had stopped photosynthesis and were requesting emergency counseling. The breaking point came when the council received a message addressed to them directly. It was from human diplomat Steve Parker, who served as humanity's representative to the council itself. The message was an apology. Steve was sorry for humanity's excessive politeness. He apologized for making other species uncomfortable with too much courtesy. He requested formal guidance on appropriate levels of politeness to avoid further diplomatic incidents. "We are deeply sorry for being too sorry," the message read. "We sincerely apologize for apologizing too much. Please forgive us for our gratitude, and thank you for your patience with our politeness." The message was so overwhelmingly polite that it created a feedback loop of courtesy. 3 council members required immediate medical attention. The crystalline delegate began fracturing from stress. The plant-based representative started wilting despite being in perfect growing conditions. Dr. Morthen collapsed into his chair, his skin now completely transparent with shock. "This is it," he announced to the chamber. "We have reached what my research indicates is terminal courtesy phase. Human politeness has exceeded safe levels for galactic stability." He activated the main display screen. Charts and graphs appeared showing human politeness levels over the past month. The lines had gone straight up, far beyond anything in recorded history. "According to my calculations," Dr. Morthen continued, "we are now dealing with humans who are more polite than mathematically possible. They are apologizing for things that cannot be apologized for. They are thanking beings who cannot be thanked." The numbers were clear. Human politeness had reached levels that threatened the basic structure of social interaction. If it continued to increase, it could break down the fundamental assumptions that made communication between species possible. Council Leader Morthen made the decision everyone had been dreading. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke the words no one wanted to hear. "Activate Alert Level Red. Begin immediate evacuation of all council facilities within 50 light-years of human space. Issue galaxy-wide emergency broadcasts. Humanity has entered terminal courtesy phase." The red alert went out across every communication channel in known space. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species was classified as a reality-threatening level of polite emergency. Evacuation ships launched from stations throughout human space. Diplomatic missions were recalled. Trade routes were redirected. The galaxy prepared for the unthinkable. Humans who were so polite they could break the universe. As the council chamber emptied, Dr. Morthen remained behind, staring at the data stream still pouring in. His skin had settled on a deep black color, the shade his species showed when facing the impossible. Somewhere out there, humans were apologizing to time itself for moving forward. They were thanking black holes for their gravitational service. They were writing formal requests to the laws of physics, asking permission to continue existing. The galaxy waited in terror for what humanity would do next. Because when humans became impossibly polite, impossible things started to happen. The galaxy held its breath. Emergency evacuation ships filled with refugees from human space arrived at distant stations every hour. Diplomatic posts that had operated for centuries were abandoned overnight. The Council's emergency headquarters had been moved to a secure location 300 light-years from the nearest human colony. Then the unthinkable happened. A human ship requested permission to dock at the Council's primary station. The ship was called the Friendship. The name sent waves of panic through the remaining skeleton crew at the station. Security Chief Nexoth immediately tried to deny the docking request, but the human captain was too polite to be refused. "Good morning," came the transmission from Captain Tony Mills. "I hope this beautiful day finds you in excellent health and high spirits. I am so terribly sorry to impose upon your valuable time, but I was wondering if we might possibly request just a brief moment of your incredibly generous attention. The transmission was so polite that the automated defense systems shut down. The computer programs were not designed to handle requests that included 17 compliments and 12 apologies in a single sentence. We understand completely if you are too busy to see us, Captain Mills continued. We would never dream of interrupting your important work. Please do not trouble yourselves on our account. If it would be more convenient, we could certainly return at a better time. Security Chief Nexoth found himself authorizing the docking without realizing it. The human politeness had bypassed his conscious mind and spoken directly to his social programming. By the time he understood what had happened, the friendship was already secured to Docking Bay 7. Captain Mills emerged from his ship with a small crew of 5 humans. They were all smiling. They carried flowers, gift baskets, and what appeared to be homemade cookies. Each human wore a name tag that said, "Hello, my name is," followed by their name and "Thank you for your patience." The council convened an emergency session. Half the members attended by hologram from safe distances. The other half hid behind blast shields in the chamber itself. Dr. Morthen's skin was now shifting between colors so rapidly, he looked like a living rainbow of panic. Captain Mills entered the chamber with his crew. He bowed politely to each section of seats, even the empty ones. His crew placed gift baskets at strategic locations around the room. The baskets contained fruit, flowers, and cards that read, "With sincere appreciation for your time." Honored members of the esteemed Galactic Council, Captain Mills began, his voice warm and friendly. I cannot begin to express how grateful we are for this incredible opportunity to speak with such wise and distinguished beings. Thank you so much for taking time from your extremely important duties to listen to our humble request. The translation devices started smoking from processing. So many courtesy words at once. 3 of them shut down completely. The remaining translators began adding extra politeness to other languages, making every species sound artificially nice. Captain Mills continued his opening remarks for 10 full minutes. He thanked the council for existing. He praised their wisdom in governing the galaxy. He apologized for humanity's presumption in requesting an audience. He expressed gratitude for the oxygen in the room, the gravity that kept everyone in their seats, and the lights that allowed them to see each other. Finally, he reached the actual purpose of his visit. We have been reflecting deeply on your recent concerns about human behavior, Captain Mills said with a sincere smile. We are truly sorry for any anxiety our politeness may have caused. We understand that our courtesy has been interpreted as threatening, and we sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding. Dr. Morthen tried to speak, but Captain Mills raised a polite hand. Please, allow me to finish our humble presentation, Mills said. We have prepared 3 options for resolving this situation, and we would be so grateful if you could consider them with your renowned wisdom. He gestured to one of his crew members, who activated a holographic display. The display showed detailed charts, star maps, and mathematical calculations. Everything was color-coded and organized with the kind of precision that only came from months of careful preparation. Option 1, Captain Mills announced, involves humanity voluntarily relocating to another galaxy within the next 6 months. We have identified several suitable targets beyond the local group. We would handle all transportation costs, of course. We would not dream of imposing this expense upon your generous budget. The display showed evacuation plans that were frighteningly thorough. Humanity had calculated exactly how many ships would be needed to move their entire species. They had identified uninhabited galaxies where they could settle without bothering anyone. They had even planned cleanup operations to remove all traces of human presence from their current worlds. We would also provide full environmental restoration of all planets we have inhabited, Mills continued. At no cost to the Council, naturally. We feel it is only fair to leave things better than we found them. The Council members stared in shocked silence. The plan was not only possible, it was elegant and well-researched. Humanity was offering to remove itself from the galaxy as politely as possible. Option 2, Mills continued without pausing, involves a complete restructuring of galactic government. We humbly suggest that humanity could take responsibility for maintaining peace and order, across all systems. This would free up the Council to focus on more important matters. The second display was even more detailed than the first. It showed organizational charts, budget projections, and efficiency improvements. Humanity had analyzed every aspect of galactic government and identified areas where they could help. The improvements they suggested would save money, reduce bureaucracy, and increase happiness across all member species. We would naturally accept all liability for any problems that might arise, Mills added. We understand this is a significant responsibility, but we feel it is the least we can do to express our gratitude for your patience with our species. Several council members fainted at this point. The idea of humans voluntarily taking over galactic government was too terrifying to contemplate. They would do it efficiently, politely, and probably make everything work better than it ever had before. Option 3, Mills said with his brightest smile yet, is the simplest of all. Please just tell us exactly what you want us to do. We will politely comply with any reasonable request. All you need to do is communicate your preferences clearly, and humanity will be delighted to accommodate your wishes. The display for option 3 was blank except for a single question. What would make you happy? Captain Mills folded his hands and waited patiently for a response. His crew stood quietly behind him, still smiling. The gift baskets sat around the chamber like small bombs of kindness. I must apologize once again for the presumptuous nature of presenting options to such wise beings, Mills added after a moment of silence. Please forgive us for suggesting that we might have solutions to offer. We are simply eager to help in whatever way you deem appropriate. Dr. Morthen, finally, found his voice. Captain Mills, he said carefully, your politeness levels are approaching theoretical maximums. Our instruments cannot measure courtesy levels this high. You are threatening the structural integrity of local space-time. Mills looked genuinely concerned. Oh my, we are so sorry to hear that. We certainly do not want to damage anything. Should we be less polite? We would be happy to adjust our behavior to whatever level you find comfortable. The offer to voluntarily reduce their politeness was somehow even more polite than everything that had come before. 2 more council members required medical attention. We are prepared to wait for your decision, Mills concluded. Please take all the time you need. We have brought reading materials and refreshments for however long this might take. Thank you again for your generous consideration of our humble proposals. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Humanity had just offered to leave the galaxy, take over the galaxy, or do whatever anyone wanted them to do. All 3 options were presented with such overwhelming courtesy that refusing seemed impossible. Dr. Morthen looked at his instruments. Human politeness levels had reached infinity. The numbers had broken his measuring devices. Somewhere in the chamber, a translator device exploded from trying to process too much politeness at once. The sound echoed through the room like a warning of what might happen to reality itself if this continued much longer. The council faced the most impossible decision in galactic history. Captain Tony Mills and his crew waited patiently in the chamber, still smiling. The gift baskets seemed to mock everyone with their cheerful ribbons and handwritten cards. Dr. Dio. Morthen's instruments had given up trying to measure human politeness levels and were now just displaying error messages. Emergency sessions ran for 3 days straight. Council members argued in hushed whispers, afraid that speaking too loudly might somehow make the humans even more polite. The debate went in circles. How could they choose between humanity leaving the galaxy, taking over the galaxy, or doing whatever anyone wanted? All 3 options were terrifying in their own way. On the 3rd day, something unexpected happened. Junior analyst Crafin of the Mollusk Confederation was working late in the archives. She was young for her species, only 40 years old, and had been assigned to research human cultural patterns. Most senior analysts were too scared to study human behavior after the politeness crisis began. Crafin was reading through old human cultural files when she found something strange. It was buried deep in a subsection labeled Human Social Behaviors, subcategory Unusual Communication Methods. The file was marked as low priority and had not been updated in decades. Reverse psychology, she read aloud to herself. A communication technique where humans say the opposite of what they want in order to get what they actually want. She kept reading. The file described something called aggressive politeness, where humans used excessive courtesy as a form of psychological pressure. According to the old research, humans sometimes became extremely polite when they were frustrated with others not understanding their actual desires. Crefin's tentacles quivered with excitement. She had found something important. She rushed to Dr. Morthen's office, her file clutched in her sucker-covered arms. Dr. Morthen was in his office, staring at data screens that showed human politeness levels still climbing toward impossible numbers. His skin had settled on a color that did not exist in his species' normal range, a sort of confused purple-green that indicated his mind was breaking down. Dr. Morthen, Crefin said breathlessly, I think I know what the humans are doing. She explained her discovery. The file suggested that human politeness was not a sign of impending violence or galaxy-changing plans. Instead, it was a form of psychological warfare designed to make other species so uncomfortable that they would give humans what they wanted, just to make the politeness stop. Dr. Morthen's skin color slowly returned to normal as he processed this information. You mean, he said carefully, that humans are not actually planning to leave the galaxy or take over the government? I think they just want us to stop treating them like they are dangerous all the time, Crefin replied. Look at this data. Every time humans have become extremely polite in the past, it happened after other species started acting afraid of them for no clear reason. Dr. Morthen pulled up historical records. The Terra Proxima incident had started after local authorities began treating human colonists with suspicion despite no evidence of wrongdoing. The Rigel colony situation began when the previous government started restricting human activities without explanation. They are not trying to threaten us, Dr. Morthen realized. They are trying to make us so uncomfortable with their politeness that we will talk to them normally and tell them what we actually want. The discovery changed everything. Dr. Morthen called an emergency council session. For the first time, in weeks, he had hope in his voice. Council members, he announced, we have been approaching this crisis from the wrong direction. Humanity is not threatening us with their politeness. They are communicating with us in the only way they know how when other species become afraid of them, for no reason. The solution was simple, but required courage. Someone had to go back to Captain Mills and respond to his politeness with directness, instead of fear. Ambassador Zethkar volunteered for the mission. He was the one who had first reported the human politeness crisis, so he felt responsible for solving it. He walked back to the chamber where Captain Mills and his crew were still, waiting patiently. They had been waiting for 3 days without complaint. They had brought books to read and were quietly playing card games. When Zethkar entered, they all stood up and smiled politely. Captain Mills, Zethkar said, his voice firm but not unfriendly. We need to talk. And I want you to stop being so incredibly polite. It is making everyone nervous. Captain Mills blinked in surprise. For the first time in weeks, a human expression changed. The constant smile wavered slightly. I am sorry, Mills said. But did you just ask us to be less polite? Yes, Zethkar replied. Your excessive courtesy is terrifying everyone in the galaxy. We understand you are frustrated with how other species have been treating you, but this level of politeness is causing system-wide panic. Mills looked at his crew. They looked back at him. Slowly, the artificial smiles began to fade from their faces. For the first time since the crisis began, they looked like normal people instead of politeness robots. Finally, Mills said with obvious relief, Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to say please and thank you every 5 seconds? The transformation was immediate. Captain Mills dropped his formal posture and sat down in a regular chair like a normal person. His crew stopped standing at attention and relaxed. The gift baskets suddenly looked like what they actually were, a slightly ridiculous gesture that had gotten out of hand. We just want equal representation on the council, Mills explained in a normal voice. We want fair trade agreements that do not automatically assume we are planning to start wars. And we want everyone to stop treating us like we are about to destroy the galaxy every time we say please or thank you. The conversation that followed was refreshingly straightforward. No excessive courtesy, no apologizing for existing, no thanking people for breathing, just normal negotiations between reasonable beings who wanted to find solutions to actual problems. The agreements reached were simple and fair. Humanity gained 3 seats on the Galactic Council, replacing the outdated system where they were only allowed to attend meetings as observers. New trade partnerships were established based on mutual benefit rather than fear of human intentions. Most importantly, protocols were put in place for direct communication between species instead of the complex diplomatic dancing that had led to the crisis. Captain Mills filed his final report with the Council. It was written in normal language and contained exactly 0 apologies for humanity's existence. He thanked the Council for their patience, but only once, and he meant it sincerely. The galaxy slowly returned to normal. Emergency evacuation ships returned to their home ports. Diplomatic missions reopened. The Council's emergency alert system was updated to include new warning signs, but this time they were watching for excessive politeness that indicated communication breakdown rather than impending human conquest. The incident became known as the Great Politeness Crisis of 2401. It was studied in diplomatic academies across the galaxy as an example of how cultural misunderstanding could nearly destabilize interstellar relations. The lesson was simple. Sometimes when someone is being extremely polite, they just want you to talk to them like a normal person. Dr. Morthen established a new department at the Council dedicated to direct human communication. Their motto was, painted on the wall in bold letters, when humans say please 17 times in one sentence, just ask them what they actually want. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous thing about humans was not their capacity for violence or their unpredictable nature. Sometimes the most dangerous thing was their ability to be so polite that it broke everyone else's ability to think clearly. From that day forward, whenever humans started being excessively courteous, other species knew exactly what to do. They would look the humans in the eye and say, please stop being so polite and tell us what you really want. It worked every time.